Now, do you think that ultimately technology will bring the human race together, or are there some divisions that are so great they're not going to be bridged by any kind of technology?
Wow, what a great question. I think that in some ways, the information about other groups of people is much more at hand than it used to be. But people's interests are remarkably close at hand. People care about their friends on Facebook. Do they really care what's going on across the world? Unless they happen to be friends with people across the world. And I do think that there's, in some way, a continuing danger that the more you bring groups of people together without more understanding between them, the more there will be friction. I would like to play some small constructive role to help people learn to live together and cooperate better.
Now, in order to do that, I guess people have to have some common interests. Is this a matter of heading towards some kind of global monoculture where no matter what part of the world you go to, people act pretty much the same and the standards are pretty much the same? And do we want that? Or are we better off having a wide variety of people who can't talk to each other?
I take it in a different way. Why didn't America become such a melting pot that you don't have any kind of differences between different groups of American people? I think the same thing is going to happen on a global scale. And I think that's a good thing for innovation because the best ideas come from people who see a problem in a different way than you do. If you can talk to people with a different background, that's the power that has really helped America become what it is. And, you know, we rub in the wrong way with each other a lot, but the best ideas come from two people from different backgrounds that come together with something new.
Now, you're primarily focused on the U.S. and Asia. What about Europe? Is Europe still in the running as a technology leader?
Oh, it certainly is. In fact, Europe has done a lot with quality of life issues that I'm sort of envious of. People who can take an 8-week vacation in the middle of the summer and not really, the company doesn't suffer that much. I think that Europe has more multi-generation family companies. And I've talked a lot with several European governments. It's not particularly bad to have that old kind of established family business culture, family industry culture. But for a company to stay competitive, it must bring in new innovations. It has to have a pipeline of new ideas that it brings to market, or the customers get bored and the employees become inefficient. So a company cannot afford to become complacent.
Now, when we talk about innovation, it kind of sounds like technology can never be stable. You never reach a point where you say, this works now, so let's just use it. No, as soon as it works, it's obsolete and you have to have something else. Does that create a risk of instability over time, the fact that everything is just out for the first time?
Well, it does, and you know, we are encountering risks for technologies that are coming out before all the problems have been foreseen. That's a huge ethical problem that there's a group at Stanford that's doing some education on. I think it's really important, especially because you could introduce something into the environment that would be terribly poison to people. And if you haven't really gone through a good process to make sure that you've got the right kind of controls on it, that could be something that we can't come back from.
And when there's a huge rush to get to market, to beat the competition, that creates a temptation to take all those shortcuts.
Yeah, and this is why business needs to do good business, which is not always be there faster than everybody else. But at the end of the day, you do need multi-sector. You need the government looking out for the needs of citizens. Business really looks out for the needs of its stakeholders. And you also do need an academic, you need the university to kind of push forward and look at these things from a neutral standpoint.
Now, in the U.S., do you think that the U.S. government is doing a good enough job to sustain innovation? Is the best thing for it to do just to stay out of the way and let the innovators innovate? Or could government play a destructive role and say, well, these people are getting too rich, there's income inequality here, we have to make it harder for the more successful people so everything is more equal? I mean,
You know, this is such a finely balanced machine. it would be so easy to lose it. Even with the system that we have, the way it's implemented, if the government tried to have too much of a say in what kind of research is being done in specific research projects and starts to pick winners, it falls apart. That's not what they do well. The business sector is much better at picking the winners. Now, I think that we've got a good system. The U.S. economy, especially as far as Silicon Valley is concerned, is the place everybody else in the world wants to be. And so we do have a good system that is well balanced, but it's really easy to lose. And we have to always be worried about losing it.
And the government has also done a lot of good things in technology, like DARPA, one of the top research labs. So government has launched its own research and development, which is filtered over to the private sector.
So it's interesting that I think that shows that in America, to justify government investment in research and development, you pull out national security. DARPA is a great example, right? The Defense Advanced Research Projects Agency. Whereas in Japan, which renounced war at the end of World War II, the real economic growth was its national security. And most of the government research and development money flowed into company labs through the Ministry of Economy, Trade, and Industry.
So does it ultimately come down to the individual creative people, and it might not necessarily matter whether they work for the private sector or for the government? It's really a small handful of people who are ultimately driving it.
Yeah, if you say a handful, it sounds too small, but I think that there will be these focused centers of innovation that are probably in urban areas, and they will have elements of research and elements of commercialization and a good hand-holding out to larger markets. But in some ways, we're moving to a structure that almost looks like the ancient city-state model of the true ancient world, where the cities were the places that people wanted to be, and the countryside basically supported the cities in the old days through agriculture.
We just have about a minute or so left. Could you give an example from your own work, your own consulting, of something that's turned out particularly well?
I think one of the things I'm proudest of was being on the committee that planned the Okinawa Institute of Science and Technology. This was a university that was not under the Ministry of Education in Japan. It was created from the ground up on a green field, actually a mountaintop in Okinawa. And they have turned it into something that is absolutely remarkable. The president used to be the director of SLAC, the Stanford Linear Accelerator Center. They now have about 60 faculty members from 39 or 40 countries. So I think I'm seeing there the kind of new model of globalization that will be positive for everybody.
There are a lot of hungry people out there who are willing to do whatever it takes to get ahead.
That's very true, and we need to be able to deal with the needs of those people, but it really takes a balanced system to make sure that nobody has too much power.
Okay, very good. And on that note, we're going to have to wrap because we are out of time. I've been speaking with Richard Dasher, Director of the U.S. Asia Technology Management Center at Stanford University. This is Future Talk. Visit our website, www.futuretalk.net. I'm Marty Wasserman. Visit us next time, and we'll see you soon. Good night.